Erriyon Knighton at 20 had already stood on Olympic and world podiums, all of which now stand marred. Unfortunately, in a dramatic turn of events, the Court of Arbitration for Sports (CAS) has upheld the shocking ruling against him, which includes a 4-year-long suspension from the track. This comes after the governing body found the explanation of contaminated oxtail to be insufficient. While many athletes have their views on this ruling, one former NCAA track star thinks that the problem transcends beyond just one athlete and lies deeper within. Soon after CAS released its 36-page decision, former NCAA track athlete Aaron Brown took to X to voice his frustration. So now that the CAS officially dropped their 36-page ruling on Erriyon Knighton's case, and it proved all that oxtails was a lie, he wrote, Brown didn't stop there. He demanded a deeper inquiry into what had actually happened, asking, why not try to get to the bottom of what actually happened and answer all the unanswered questions? His post listed a series of pointed inquiries. Who gave Knighton the drugs? Who put him on with the person administering them? He turned pro as a child prodigy. But who managed his body? Who had access? How did his training partners perform outside of the U.S.? 'Cause clearly U.S. athletes are allowed by USADA to use drugs. Who came up with that stupid oxtail, etc.? Knighton's fall began with an out-of competition test in March 2024. The sprinter tested positive for trenbolone's metabolite, epitrenolone, an anabolic steroid often associated with livestock production. The Olympian further stated that the substance entered his system through a contaminated oxtail dish served at a restaurant. In June 2024, the U.S. anti-doping agency USADA accepted that explanation, allowing him to race at the U.S. Olympic trials and the Paris Games. But that decision didn't sit well with the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, and World Athletics, WA. They immediately appealed to CAS, arguing that the theory was statistically impossible. This week, CAS sided with WADA and WA. The panel noted that there was no evidence to suggest that imported oxtail could have trenbolone at levels that would lead to a positive test. As a result, Knighton received a 4-year suspension starting September 12, 2025, with credit for a provisional ban served earlier between April 12 and June 19, 2024. The ruling formally closes one chapter of a long controversy, but it has opened doors to another deeper underlying issue. Brown's remarks reignited a debate about USADA's credibility and the transparency of anti-doping processes in American sport. The contrast between USADA's leniency and CAS' decisive stance has led to widespread discontent and confusion. However, for Knighton, the decision means years away from competition during what would have been the prime of his career. Not just the Erriyon Knighton case. Tigert blasts WADA over alleged inconsistencies. Travis T. Tigert, the chief executive of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, USADA, recently reflected on the criticism surrounding the handling of Erriyon Knighton's case. He stated that the process followed was precisely what the rules had stated. Tigert noted, when Knighton tested positive for a low level of trenbolone during an out-of competition test, we provisionally suspended him, tested his B sample, and charged him with a potential anti-doping rule violation. According to Tigard, the case was expedited before an independent arbitrator who reviewed all evidence. He found Knighton without fault due to the evidence linking the meat he ate at a restaurant to the prohibited substance. And given his testing history, Tigard also contrasted USADA's conduct with that of China's anti-doping authority and the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. In earlier unresolved cases, he said, WADA allowed China not to notify the athletes of the positive tests. Neither China nor WADA enforced the mandatory provisional suspension rules. He further emphasized that the true concern did not lie in the Knighton proceedings but in what he described as what's inadequate regulation of contamination-related positives. The real issue in this case is what's bad rule, Tigard stated, pointing to trenolone's known presence in livestock and calling for long delayed reform. We have advocated for the rules around contamination to formally change for years, and WADA has refused to act swiftly. When the Court of Arbitration for Sports CAS handed down its long-awaited decision on Erriyon Knighton's doping case, the entire athletics community froze in disbelief. The ruling, while attempting to provide clarity, instead opened up a floodgate of confusion and divided opinions. 4. One former NCAA track star, the decision felt like a punch to the gut. Not because of personal bias, but because it symbolized something much deeper about the state of fairness and transparency in modern athletics. Erriyon Knighton, once heralded as America's next sprinting prodigy, the teen phenom who stood toe-to-toe with the legends, suddenly found himself in the middle of a controversy that no young athlete dreams of facing. At just 21, he had already captured the imagination of millions with his effortless 200m glides and quiet confidence. Yet, after the CAS verdict confirmed a doping-related ban, that image has been clouded by suspicion, debate, and frustration. The case was complex. Reports suggested that the banned substance found in Knighton's system might have come from a contaminated source. His legal team argued passionately for leniency, citing lack of intent, age, and unintentional ingestion. The CAS, however, upheld the sanction, a decision that left many wondering whether the system was truly built to protect athletes or merely punish them to preserve its image of integrity. That question echoed loudly in the words of former NCAA sprint champion Marcus Dean, who took to social media within hours of the verdict. We say athletes are innocent until proven guilty, he wrote. But in track and field, once your name hits the doping list, you're guilty forever, no matter what the evidence says. Dean's message resonated with hundreds of athletes, both active and retired, who felt that Knighton's case exposed the sport's uneasy relation, competed for a major division one university, and narrowly missed the Olympic team, spoke from experience. He had witnessed firsthand the toll that anti-doping investigations could take. The sleepless nights, the frozen sponsorships, the public humiliation. The system is supposed to protect clean athletes, he said in a recent podcast. But sometimes it feels like it destroys careers first and asks questions later. What made Knighton's case so emotionally charged was not just the ban itself, but the timing. The young American had been seen as one of the few who could challenged the dominance of Noah Lyles, the reigning king of the 200m. Their rivalry was shaping up to be the storyline that carried track and field into a new golden era. One of youthful energy, charisma, and American pride. But now with Knighton sidelined, that narrative has been shattered. Critics argue that the CAS decision was necessary to maintain the credibility of the sport. Rules are rules. One former official told reporters, if we start bending them for young stars, we destroy the foundation of anti-doping integrity. Yet others believe that nuance has been lost in the pursuit of strict enforcement. Context matters. Dean emphasized, we can't treat an 18-year-old with limited resources the same way we treat a seasoned professional who's been in the system for a decade. This debate over fairness versus firmness is not new, but Knighton's case reignited it with emotional force. CAS decisions are often final, but their implications linger far beyond the courtroom. In this case, they've sparked a broader conversation about whether the anti-doping system needs reform, particularly in how it handles young athletes, contamination claims, and cases without clear intent. Social media has become the modern court of public opinion, and Knighton's name now trends with every mention of justice and bias. Some fans believe he's been wronged by an inflexible bureaucracy. Others insist the decision proves no one, regardless of fame or potential, is above the rules. The truth may lie somewhere in between. But that gray area is exactly what frustrates people like Marcus Dean. He recalls the case of other young athletes who faced similar accusations only to be cleared years later after evidence of contamination emerged. By then, he said, their careers were gone. Sponsors left. Public trust vanished. Even when they were proven innocent, no one cared. That's the part people don't understand. The system doesn't just suspend athletes. It erases them. The CAS decision on Knighton might technically close the case, but symbolically it opens an uncomfortable discussion about how much faith the public should place in the sport's governing bodies. Track and field, already struggling for global attention compared to basketball or football, cannot afford to lose another young star to controversy. Dean ended his reflection with a challenge to the next generation. If we want this sport to survive, we need transparency. Real transparency. Let athletes understand the system. Let them have access to education, resources, and protection. Don't just punish them and move on. His words struck a chord, resonating not only with athletes, but with fans who see the human side of these headlines. Knighton was never portrayed as arrogant or defiant, just young, talented, and driven, whether guilty or not. His case shows how fragile athletic careers can be in an era of microscopic scrutiny. In the weeks following the CAS verdict, Erriyon Knighton himself has remained largely silent, save for a brief message thanking his supporters and promising to return stronger. That simple statement, filled with quiet resilience, reminded the world that even in controversy, character shines through. For Marcus Dean and countless others, the hope is that Knighton's situation will serve as a catalyst for change. That the next young athlete caught in a web of bureaucracy. Won't have to fight the same uphill battle alone. The CAS decision might have written one chapter of this story, but the debate it ignited will shape the sport's future for years to come. And perhaps one day, when Knighton returns to the track, he won't just be running for medals. He'll be running for redemption, for reform, and for the belief that justice and compassion can coexist in the world of elite athletics. What are your thoughts? Drop us a comment. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like and share.